"Don't worry, I won't harm you," he said to the creature in a calming manner. The Hydra looked at him in disbelief, even more so as he descended back to the planet below. He dropped the Hydra off on an island where it wouldn't be able to harm any other pony and quickly took off towards the destroyed town. He had made it back in a matter of seconds, but by the sounds of the wails of agony, he knew he was a few seconds too late. Superman came into the halt over the center of the town, where a young filly was clutching her sister's body. "No! No!" Apple Bloom screamed, clinging onto her sister's corpse. The other fillies and the other ponies around her were crying as well, some of them unable to look. He landed softly beside the crying filly, guilt tearing apart his heart. If he had been faster, or had stopped the Hydra before it could have fired, maybe she would still be alive. He had failed her. He had failed Apple Bloom. He looked around at all the destruction taking in his failure. The burned buildings, the crushed monuments, and all the dead. Finally, he looked down at the crying filly, letting her anguish wash over him. He looked to the ponies and fillies beside him, watching them cry as well. They had been friends. They had shared many great times together, and now she was gone, because he had been slow. Finally, he looked at Applejack with X-ray vision, hoping against hope. Wait a second. Her brain was still giving off brainwaves. Her mind was still working! But if her mind was working, that meant she hadn't fully died yet. He quickly scanned her heart and found to his joy that it had only come to a stop. She hadn't bled out. Her heart had stopped from the impact of the dark blast. That means there was a... He didn't even allow himself to finish that thought as he scooped the not-dead pony up in his arms. Before the others could yell or even ask what he was doing, he rocketed off into the sky. With the lack of any modern hospitals that he had seen on this planet, there was only one place to find the electricity he needed now: a thunderstorm. With speed that no mortal could comprehend, he flew across the globe in search of the perfect storm. He found it over a desert with lightning and rain to spare. Without a moment's thought, he flew into the dark storm, black clouds surrounding him and the howling rain beating against his suit. The cloud with the greatest amount of electricity was his target and his only chance. Once stationed in the center of the cloud, he turned his attention to the wound. Using his heat vision, he slowly closed the bleeding wound on her side. While magic might not work, cauterizing usually did. This time the wound stayed closed, allowing Superman to wait for the lightning. The first bolt was not long in coming. He saw the flash off to his right and quickly flew to intercept it, the bolt of lightning striking him square in the back. Superman gritted his teeth as the electricity flooded through his body, but also into the pony laying limp in his arms. He was using his body to absorb most of the shock, only allowing the amount that was needed to reach the pony's body. He watched as the electricity reached the heart, the currents pulsating through it. Come on! Yes! The heart had moved on its own, the electricity restoring life to her, but it wasn't enough. He needed more electricity. For the next 30 seconds, Superman flew back and forth, intercepting lightning bolt after lightning bolt. With each electrical strike, the heart began to beat more and more. He flew into one last lightning bolt, feeling the currents flow through them both. Finally, her heart started beating on its own. He watched as the blood began to flow, restoring life to the pony's body. After a few seconds, Applejack finally opened her eyes and looked up at the Man of Steel. Superman? What? Where am I? She asked in confusion, looking around at the thunderstorm. She screamed and nearly jumped out of Superman's arms as a bolt of lightning nearly hit them. While she screamed in terror, Superman let out a sigh of relief, glad that he had managed to save her. He turned with a smile as Applejack clung to his chest and flew off towards Ponyville. He had to admit, he was not expecting the kind of response he got when he returned. He had slowly landed in the center of the town, crouching down so that he could place Applejack on the ground. She staggered a bit, but gave him a grateful smile. He smiled back and looked up to see a stampede of ponies heading for him. Leading the charge was Apple Bloom, tears running down her face as she rushed towards her sister. "Hey, Apple Bloom! Applejack!" Apple Bloom cried, tackling her sister and knocking them both over. While Apple Bloom cried and her sister comforted her, the other ponies finally caught up to them. The rainbow one and the other two fillies ran over to Applejack, tackling her back to the ground. Twilight, on the other hand, walked over to Superman, who was smiling at the heartwarming reunion. "How?" she asked him. "What do you mean?" he asked her, turning his attention away from the others. Twilight was looking at him with suspicion in her eyes and a bit of fear. "How did you bring her back? She was dead. No heartbeat, no movement, nothing. How could you bring her back? What are you?" Superman rolled his eyes and stood up, walking towards the pony. "Again, I'm not a what, I'm a who. And like I said earlier, I am..." Once again, Superman was interrupted by a blast of magic that hit him in the side of the head. The magic was strong enough to toss the Man of Steel across the town center like a rag doll, and he only came to a stop when he slammed into the side of a building. He shook his head and got back to his feet, looking to the sky from where the attack had come. A majestic chariot was floating in the air, pulled by two white Pegasi with golden armor. What interested him the most was the alicorn inside. She was a pure white, with a sun on her flank. Her mane flowed with a multitude of colors, with a golden crown completing the look. But what was the most interesting was her eyes full of rage. "You dare attack our subjects!" she roared with authority, power crackling off her body. Superman shook his head in disbelief and sighed. "Here we go." He moved to the side as another blast of pure magic blasted by him. The alicorn began to unleash a torrent of magic down upon him from her horn, unleashing her full power in an effort to exterminate him. Superman could see each attack before it could reach him, giving him plenty of time to dodge out of the way. With each of his dodges, the alicorn got more and more frustrated. "For the love of... I have no interest in hurting your subjects," he yelled out to her, still having to dodge her attacks. "You expect me to believe you? You who came from space in a war vessel and destroyed this town?" she roared, unleashing more fire upon him. While he continued to dodge, he noticed that a number of shots had almost hit a few civilians. This was getting out of hand. She was endangering innocent lives now. Time to end this. In the blink of an eye, Superman moved from the center of the town to right in front of the princess. Before she could move, he grabbed her by the horn and lifted her over the side of the carriage. The ponies watching couldn't take their eyes off the battle, none of them daring to move. The alicorn unleashed her power through her horn, burning Superman's hand. He let go for a second, pulling his hand back. Then she unleashed her full power. A pure beam of magical energy slammed into his chest, nearly burning through his suit. He was tossed from the carriage and tossed through the sky before being driven into the ground. The impact created a small crater and the magic pinned Superman to the ground. He groaned and looked up to see a giant ball of energy being tossed at him, causing a massive explosion when it hit the ground. Celestia finally let up, panting heavily after exerting so much of her power in one fight. She looked at the smoking crater, relieved that she had won. Whatever she had fought, it had been tough. No pony could have survived that much magic. For a moment, she had believed it did. With the creature defeated, she flew off her carriage and landed next to the ponies. "Do not worry, you are all safe now," she said in an exhausted tone. The reaction they gave her was not what she had expected. "What the heck, princess? Why'd you go and do that? Sculo asked in a rage. Yeah, why'd you hurt Superman? Sweetie Belle added. Celestia looked at both of them in confusion. What do you... Superman just saved my sister's life! He didn't deserve that! An infuriated Applebloom yelled, and just as you went and Celestia realized that she was looking behind her and slowly turned around. Standing right behind her was a very annoyed Superman. Celestia fired another blast at him, only to watch as he seemed to vanish into the air. She felt a hand place itself on her shoulder, a hand that was filled with power. As I was saying, enough! Celestia slowly backed up, not believing her eyes. She had unleashed her full power upon him, everything she had in her arsenal, and it had done nothing but anger this creature. He walked right up to stare into her eyes, watching as the pupils shrank down to a very small size. He stared into her eyes for a moment before walking right past her, over to Applejack, crouching down to her level. How are you feeling? He asked her. Fine. Thanks for asking, she replied in an odd tone. He used his X-rays to check her internal injuries, making sure everything was okay. A frown crossed his face when he saw that the damage wasn't permanently repaired, only temporarily so. You need to go to a hospital. You're still hurt. Applejack looked at him in confusion, but his tone told her that he wasn't kidding. Come on, I'll take you to a hospital, he told her, scooping her back into his arms. He looked to the east to see a nearby hospital and had turned to fly off to it when Celestia stepped in front of him. And why should I let you fly off with Applejack? She asked him in a threatening tone. Superman sighed and rolled his eyes. Was she seriously doing this now? Okay. First, because you can't stop me. 2, because she needs a hospital. And third... Superman took off faster than any of them could blink and headed off for the hospital that he had seen on his way back. Celestia yelled at him and took to the sky to follow him, leaving the other ponies to only stare in awe. Hello, my fellow human beings. I'm sorry I haven't recorded as much as this, but I've been busy. Things have gotten in the way, and a lot of times I just plain out forgotten. And I kind of fell out of the fandom for a while, but I'm back now. I'm not going to really get into why, but I just thought I would say something about this. One, this is totally how Celestia would react, I think, because she doesn't want anyone to be the hero that she doesn't want a hero to be. She only wants people who she wants to be a hero. Take Luna, for example. And also because she's ignorant. I think she's a tyrannical ruler. On another note, I should mention that this fanfiction is very well written, but it has a lot of typos, so if I hesitate, it's not entirely my fault because I'm constantly looking for those typos to make sure I don't mess up, and that kind of throws me off, not wanting to mess up. So, sorry, I'll try to post a link to the original site where you can read along with me. But I really can't help that. Sorry. But I hope you enjoyed this, so have a good day.